On today's episode, we're going to tell you what prospects, offensive and defensively, that you need to be watching when SMU faces Penn State in the college football playoffs. Tight end Tyler Warren is one of the stars of this matchup. We'll talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duel that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. DP, we will continue to roll through the first, not the first ever, right? But I guess the bracket being this big, right? College football playoff. Yesterday we did Indiana versus Notre Dame. So a little interstate rivalry, right? This one, SMU versus Penn State, DP, I couldn't think of two totally different places, right? You're talking about Dallas versus Pennsylvania, right? Happy Valley. So we're going to get into the conversation, man. We're going to talk about the offensive prospects to watch. We're going to talk about the defensive prospects to watch, and then talk about X factors. DP, you know, I like to start with the offensive side of the football. Let's get into it.
Guys, it's crossover Thursday here at the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast Network, and it's presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Keith, you love to start on the offensive side of the ball. For you, looking at this matchup, SMU, Penn State, what offensive player, what's the top offensive player to watch during this game?
I mean, we have to start with potentially the best player and the guy that's going to get drafted the highest, especially now that Drew Allen said he wants to go back to college, right? We have to start with Tyler Warren, right? The do-it-all tight end. And if you haven't gotten your eyes on him, this would be a very good time to watch him, right? This guy does it all. He's going to play slot. He's going to play wide receiver. He's going to play inline. He's going to play H-back. They're going to do some split flow action with him, right? He's a guy that you can bootleg, and he'll catch the ball in the flats, carry it up, make some people miss, and get 20, 30 yards on the play. He's just for this team, DP, just their playmaker, right? And we talk about them being potentially, not even potentially, devoid of weapons on the outside. And when you think about Penn State, their passing attack is ran through a tight end, right? And we project that and move that forward. And I remember, you know, when the Buffalo Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid, right? And it was like, hey, he's going to be their guy. I think when teams draft Tyler Warren, it's going to be some of the same conversation, right? Like, hey, can we potentially run an offense through him and make things happen? So I'm looking at Tyler Warren initially, DP, for Penn State as an offensive prospect to watch.
Have to, right? Tyler Warren, Keith, you know, he's like 6'6", 240, 250, runs wildcat quarterback. He'll throw the ball. He snaps it. And those are the things that people like. It's exciting to watch him do.
Yeah, that's the other part is exciting.
Jack of all trades. It's very exciting. Like you said, if you haven't, like he said, if you haven't watched him yet, you'll be happy to get eyes on him in this game. And I think he's going to be the guy that SMU has to take away, because I'm and with him, because he's such a flexible option in that passing attack. He'll line in line, like you said, H-back, you know, playing quarterback. They'll go with him. They'll have him and Drew Aller in the backfield with Drew Aller's line at quarterback. He's lined up at running back. Then they do a quick shift. Drew Aller bumps out to slot, and he's the Wildcat quarterback, and they're running counter. They're running counter plays off of that. And you still got Nick Singleton on the field. So it's like they tapped into that. What was that, like 06 Miami Dolphins Wildcat, you know, when they brought the Wildcat to the NFL and they were just hammering teams with it. They tapped into that playbook. I also look at Nicholas Singleton, Keith, and again, I compare this young man. He reminds me a lot of David Johnson. When David Johnson was in the league and he was with the Arizona Cardinals, that one of those big guys. He's listed at 6 foot 226, explosive speed, burst. He has an elite gear to him. And once he gears up, now I do think that he needs to get with a track coach so he can work on his run form, because he is very wild as a runner. So like sometimes he loses his own balance because he's just trying to go. You know what I mean? So it's like he perfects that stride and get that run, those run mechanics. Yeah, with his speed and acceleration and burst. But it's what he does as a receiver out of the backfield, right? He catches the ball underneath as a check down option. But then they in the red zone, go back to that Wisconsin game, they lined him up in the slot. They ran a slot fade with a off a pick play, and he tracks the ball. He runs it well, runs his defender into the pick, gets free, tracks the ball well. You know what I mean? Catches it well with his hands. This is a guy that's going to be a reliable weapon. That's what I'm watching his full skill set. Just did a scout report. I'm like, yeah, this is David Johnson, man. So like,
at DP, I like that call because he's a big guy, right? But he's also nimble and he has good body control. You said David Johnson, which I may even like that one better, but and people that maybe not as familiar, but remember like early James Conner, right? Early James Conner, and potentially you want to throw Le'Veon Bell in there, right? Like one of these big backs with good body control.
Catch the ball,
Yeah, I may like the David Johnson one the very best. And it's just projection wise, right? Is that we haven't heard a lot of Nicholas Singleton, but you look at it, and is he one of those players that's going to have a bigger NFL career, right, than collegiate, right? Like he's going to be more known in the NFL, obviously depending on situation, than what he was in college. But I agree with you, and I know we talked about him months ago, and then we talked about him before I actually watched him all the way. And I remember I watched him, and I was like, nah, this guy got the goods, right? Like he got something. He has top 5 running back in the class type of athletic tools.
Yeah, the home run hitting speed, like you got to contain him like in the box. Like once he breaks free and he gets up to top gear, like if you don't have a good angle, and sometimes even with the good angle, you're not gonna catch him. Like, and that's just what it is. And with him being that home run, and him and Kaytron Allen being like very good complements to each other, with Kaytron's that north and south kind of Lindell White power puncher type of runner, where you're like, yeah, this is gonna be a hard hat type of situation. Then when you swap him out and bring in Singleton, it's like, well, Singleton also runs really hard. He's going to convert speed to power, but then he has the speed that you just don't feel like dealing with. So it's like it's a very tough rushing attack, and those are the guys. Those are the 4. That's how was it like they talk about the big 3, the big 4 in basketball stuff like that's the big 4 for Penn State offensively. It's those guys. Everybody else just play your part, but it's those guys. That offensive line got to do their part as well. On the SMU side, Keith, got to go to Brashard Smith. Right, over 1,200 yards rushing this season, averaging 6 yards per attempt, 14 rushing touchdowns. Right, like he's more of a zone runner, which fits exactly what the NFL is nowadays with the West Coast offense. And for him, also, he has, I believe, over 300 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns on the season as well. And this guy's like 5'10", 196, almost 200 pounds. He's another explosive, like speedy runner who plays with good patience, identifies hard and soft edges, knows when to bang, bounce, and bend runs on those zone stretch runs. This is going to be a situation where reading Danny Dennis Sutton, reading Abdul Carter is going to be a premium. You got to read those guys, know which way their leverage is, and be able to help your blockers by cutting off of that or jump cutting off of it. I think he's going to play a big part. Him and Kevin Jennings, who I think Snoop, we play Tyler Huntley. That's my comp for Kevin Jennings. He's Tyler Huntley, and I think with his,
I like that. And
body type's a little different, but it reminds me
just
a lot of
what they could do, right?
And
Tyler got running the NFL, right? So you could potentially looking, like you said, an NFL draft prospect. DP, I'm gonna stay on the offense side of the football, and I just want to point out one guy because I'm interested to see what he's doing now. And that's offensive tackle for SMU, Savion Byrd. This is a guy that I was familiar with out of high school. He's a highly ranked, highly recruited young man, right? Went to Oklahoma initially, played some tackle, but more guard, I believe, in his appearances. But now he's a starting left tackle for SMU. And he's talking about checking out from a measurables perspective, right? 6'5", 300 pounds, movement skills. He has the goods. So, hey, if you show up against Abdul Carter and Danny Denai Sutton, right? Then you make a case for your draft profile. And I don't know if he declared this year or if he's even draft eligible, but heading into next year, he definitely has an opportunity to stake his claim. So yeah, he's a junior, so I think he is draft eligible. And then now it's just a matter of, hey, can he get himself to the next level, right, and get eyeballs on him, because this class is obviously looking for late risers. But DP, I talked about a couple of defensive guys. Let's dive all the way into it. Coming up next, man, we're going to talk about the defensive prospects to watch in this game.
It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, 40 FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, and brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just simply enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Again, that's hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Defensive prospects to watch when SMU travels to Penn State, 12 noon kickoff. The college football schedule makers have stolen the whiteout from us all season. We haven't gotten a big game in Penn State at night where we could have get the Mo Bamba. We could have gotten the whiteout. They stole that from us, Keith. But I got to go, of course, Abdul Carter. This guy is what top 10 pick. He's a top 10 lock for me. He might be a top 5 pick, depends on like if Carolina, we talked about it. If Carolina selects him and the way Bryce has played, and they know it, let's go best player available. Let's get the best defensive player available, whether it's him or Mason Graham. Abdul Carter and his ability to rush the passer is going to be paramount in this game, but it's going to be stopping the run. We saw Jordan James have a lot of success in that Big Ten championship game. Like, he had some good success, especially early. Like, even though Dylan Gabriel played well, they were a very balanced attack in that game. You got to take that away from SMU. And a big part of that, we just talked about Rashard Smith and his ability in the stretch run game. Abdul Carter, you're going to have to set the edge, push him back inside to your defensive tackles, to your linebackers like Kobe King, and allow those guys to rally. You got to keep him under wraps and force Kevin Jennings to then lead this game and take this game over. He's a young player, so I don't know if he's in that takeover arc of his career just yet, but you got to take away the top player, and that is Rashard Smith. So Abdul Carter has to have a balanced game, not just have a heavy pass rush game. When they want to run the ball, you got to stop them. You got to be a big part of why you stop them.
Yeah, DP, obviously Abdul Carter is, he's the hottest name, right? It might be the hottest name in the entire matchup. I want to look at the guy that they usually put on the other side of him, right? And that's Danny Denai Sutton. Denai Dennis Sutton. I'm trying to figure out the proper way to arrange the name.
Danny Dennis Sutton. I think it's Danny.
Dan. That's what I thought. Okay, I was trying to make sure I got it right. But want to look at him listed at 6'5", 270 pounds. Those teams that need a true strong side defensive end, has 4 sacks on the season. I believe last year he had I believe it was close to 4 sacks, also 3.5, right? So this is around his threshold for sacks. But we know that in a third round, this is where these guys kind of start flying off the board, right? Teams that just need a run stopping defensive end, and going against a SMU team. This is the playoffs, right? But you will believe that the Penn State is better in the trenches, and they should be better in the trenches because of guys like him, right? Like, you should just flat out be better than the SMU offensive line. No disrespect to them, but that's just what it should be, right? And so I'm looking at Dennis Sutton and saying, like, hey, this could be a game for you, right? Like, this could be a game, big spotlight that you say, hey, am I Abdul Carter? No, but I'm the next best thing, right? And so you put yourself in potentially a top 75, top of the third round, bottom of the second, because we there's a lot of edge rushers in this class, DP. When we go through, the Donovan Izarikus, we go through the Kyle Kennards, his name has yet to buzz like Jared Ivey's name has buzzed, right? But I feel like they potentially could be in the same bracket, but you have to go have a big-time performance, and this could be that big-time performance for him.
No, 100%, Keaton. This is one of those situations where if they slide protection to Abdul, you got to eat. You have to feast in this game. You got to show up and show out. Keith, I'm gonna go to the SMU side of the ball, and they're two edge rushers. Jafari Harvey, 8 sacks on the season, 7 QB hits, 20 hurries, and Elijah Roberts, 7 sacks, 5 QB hits, 43 hurries. If it's one thing you're gonna have to do, Drew Aller already said, "Hey, I'm not entering the 2025 NFL draft. I'm going back next year." Well, guess what? You want to send them home today, like in this game. You want to send him home, and you got to get home for him. This is also an athletic quarterback. He's like 6'5", like 230, but he's athletic. So not only do you need to be able to get into the backfield, make him consistently feel your presence, but you got to be disciplined with your rush lanes. Because if you get out of control and you're just erratic as a pass rusher, you're just fighting to get in the backfield. While we appreciate that motor and desire, you got to be disciplined with a mobile quarterback, because if he feels it, he's going to step up, replace you, and then he's going to get 10, 12, 15 yards, keep the chains moving on first down, especially with the receiving core or lack thereof that Penn State has. You want to be able to keep him in the pocket and make him have to throw tight window throws. And it's not like he can't make them, but it's a simple fact of, you're going to like, with the receivers they have, like, every route is going to be tight window unless they scheme it up right. So you can be able to play tight man-to-man coverage, like, or play tight zone and like try to force him and bait him into kind of those young quarterback mistakes, right? Well, what do we see with these young quarterbacks when we put them in positions of, hey, you're our only hope? They start to try and be Superman. And that's when you make mistakes, right? When you're trying to be a hero and play hero ball. That's what SMU has to do. And I think having Jafari Harvey and Elijah Roberts, they're 2 top edge rushers, that's going to be big. But Keith, on the interior defensive line for them, 6'4", 294, Jarrett Harrison Hunt. This is a 6-year senior. He played his first 5 years at Miami, transferred to SMU. He's got 7 sacks on the season, 3 QB hits, 31 pressures on the season as well. He's getting in the backfield a lot from the interior. And this is a guy that moves around, plays in the B gap, in the A gap. He even goes out, and plays some 5 tech with his body type. So you're talking about having the ability to move defensive linemen around. SMU has that. It's going to be paramount, because the pressure started to get home a little bit against Clemson in the ACC championship game. And it just took them a little time. And once they figured it out, they were able to play good coverage in the back end. The pass rush was able to get home. They stopped the run, even though, like, Phil Moffitt, I think Dabo Swinney said Phil Moffitt's going to have to get shoulder surgery when it's all over with. So he's still
playing. That
makes
a lot of sense, because we'll talk when we get into the running backs. Yeah. But I when I was watching film, I'm like, there's a clear difference from beginning of season to end of season with Phil.
Same. I had the same thought. And seeing that quote, I said, okay, that makes perfect sense now. So, like, just looking at it, them being able to stop the run for Clemson, force Cade Klubnik to throw, I think, 40-plus times. And even though they lost that game, that's the recipe you want. You want quarterbacks to throw it 30, 40 times and limit the run game. Those 3 defensive linemen for SMU, they're going to play a big part in this game on how successful they're able to be on early downs And can you get him in third and longs to be able to get an upset, get in the backfield, and make some plays on Drew Aller?
Yeah, I agree with that, DP. And then I would just have an honorable mention, right? A guy that's not going to play, but probably like is one of my favorite defenders in this entire draft, Kevin Winston Jr., right? And I know he's not going to play. I just wanted to mention his name because just what fun it would have been to watch him with this spread, SMU offense that's like doing different things. He could have played on a roof. He could have walked down.
His teammate needs to have a big game, though. Jalen Reed, he struggled a little bit against Oregon. He got to get a bounce-back game.
I agree 100%. Yeah, and it I think Kevin, he declared for the draft, right? So this thing it is wrapped up at Penn State.
Wow.
I think they said the injury finally came out. Cause remember they just kept saying it was a long-term injury, but somebody said, this is not me reporting anything, right? Just reading it on the internet for what that's worth, is that it could have been a potentially torn ACL. Like
that's what I figured.
Partially torn, you know what I'm saying? Not a fully torn, but he's going to the draft. But just wanted to mention him because he's one of my favorite draft prospects. I just like him a lot as one of the best safeties in this class. But DP, let's wrap this thing up with what, man, the X Factor prospect to watch. And DP, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm cheating, right? This segment, I'm cheating. I'm throwing a name in there that maybe shouldn't be in there, but I'm throwing a name in there. So we're gonna talk about that coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. To get in on the action, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. To get in on the action, just join FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. X factors to watch, those X factor prospects that could determine win or loss for the SMU Mustangs and Penn State Nittany Lions. Keith, you said you're cheating in this topic. Who are you picking for your X factor, man?
Well, DP, this is supposed to be 2025 NFL draft prospects, right?
Okay.
Mr. Drew Aller, right? He wanted to reclassify, decide to come back, whatever you want to call it, right? You was going to be my guy. And I can't help it that every time I watch Penn State, that's who I want to look at because I feel like he's an X factor prospect. Now, the fact that he decided to come back, that's not my fault, DP. So I'm still going with what I'm going with. It is what it is. He's not a 2025 NFL draft prospect. He's a 2026, maybe.
Should have been.
Right?
Should have been.
Right. Should be. So I'm going with Drew Aller to watch him and see how he handles things, right? Just as far as big time moment, playing at home, he needs one of these games because I think the Oregon game by far was his best, maybe his best collegiate game. We're talking about playing against like a highly talented team, right? Because we talked about this entering into the season, how he played good football, except for when they played Michigan and Ohio State. Then this year, they didn't play Michigan. They played Ohio State, and he played blah. Right? I think that's the best way to call it. But against Oregon, he balled out, right? He balled out. And I just want to see him follow up that performance because there could be a lot there. And I mean, I guess he declared, right? But if you have a good performance, do you redeclare? So you know what? I think I'm out. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
No, it's funny because, Keith, I wonder to myself if he didn't get hurt in the first half against Wisconsin, if he had the game that he had against Oregon, against Ohio State, then double down with that game against Oregon, balls out in the college football playoffs, there, like the hype, like the buzz for him would go from, oh yeah, I could get him at top of the second to maybe I take him before Cam Ward or before a Shedeur Sanders because he's going to check all the physical boxes at 6'5", 230, rocket arm. He's mobile. And he's still super young. I think he's like 20, maybe 21 years old. Like he's still young.
I think he had a shot because my prediction is that this draft situation is going to get really messy. That's what I think. I think it's gonna get really messy, and I think it's gonna be a lot of conversations about stuff that have nothing to do with football. That
Yeah.
is going to, and I'm not pushing that because I don't support it or believe it, right? But I think that's what's going to happen. I think people are going to find a reason not to like the two top.
Narratives, storylines.
Yeah, they're going to find a reason not to like the two top quarterbacks, and they're going to be looking for another guy that they can buy into. That say, even
Well,
if I don't like his
start,
football, I like him. You know what I'm saying? Like
start
I
with
like him. Like I like that guy. Like so
yeah.
that's just my
They can stop
prediction.
looking
But
right now, Keith. They can stop looking right now. It's not. It's not in this class to be sitting there to like, yeah, I want somebody. No, like
don't be surprised.
Let it go because you go make a fool out of yourself. You know what I mean? Trying to reach for it. But I'm with you. I just feel like with Drew Allen's like, man, like, and I'm not saying that this is gonna happen, but what if he does run the table in the CFP? What if they do like he not even just run the table? What if he just balls out for 2 games? He wins against SMU. He wins next week because no, they might do run the table in a sense because they got Boise. Whoever wins this game faces Boise, and no disrespect to Boise State. Like there's a different type of level of offensive firepower you would be seeing against either one of these teams, whether it's SMU or Penn State.
Well, not even fire, like just trenches, right? Like especially for Penn State, like your offense never seen trenches like that from like Abdul Carter. And I get it, they played Oregon early on, but I mean, I don't. Oregon don't have an Abdul Carter, right?
No, they don't have an Abdul Carter, but they also felt like they didn't know who they were. It was week 2.
Yeah, it was early. Yeah, they lacked identity. That was them still trying to run everything through Dylan Gabriel, I believe, right? Instead of ground and pound, play good defense. You know what I'm saying?
RPO, play action.
Yeah.
No, and then you saw their defensive linemen start to elevate themselves as the season went on. Once they found out who's their front four. So I'm with you on that, Keith. I'm going to the trenches for my X factor, and that's PJ Williams, the left tackle from SMU. He's 6'5", 317, almost 320 pounds. He has only allowed 1 sack during the season. This is a guy who's played really good ball. He's graded out well in pass protection. He has the look of a potential early first-round pick at the tackle position. I think he's a true junior, so he has 1 more year of eligibility left. You know what I mean? So I think he'll be a senior going into the 2026 draft. But playing left tackle, who are you going to face in this game? Abdul Carter. So even if you don't plan on declaring for this game, this is a situation to hit the ground running going into next year, going into the summer scouting and things of that nature, where people turn on the tape and say, listen, that kid from SMU who locked down Abdul Carter, PJ Williams, oh yeah, he's probably a projected first-round pick at the tackle position in 2026. He has the movement skills, the strength. I like what I saw from him. And again, the numbers back it up as well. A big thing for him. Also his teammate, because this is a team that we talk about, want to run the ball. And like you said, Keith, like Boise State, just get ready. Defensively as well, you have not seen this type of mass in body types in the trenches. Ja'Kai Clark, 6'3", 335, a guy who is like giving up only 1 sack, but like 4 pressures all season. He's been pretty much locked down in pass pro. He's going to be able to do duo block, climb to the second level in the stretch run game. He's going to pick guys off at the next level. Talking about those linebackers and everything. This is a situation where I think he is a senior. So this is just an opportunity for him for those Clark. 2 guys. Yeah. Like for both of them, for Ja'Kai Clark and PJ Williams, to just make a name for themselves.
Yeah, DP and Ja'Kai Clark was I believe, I think out of high school. He's from Georgia, but he wound up going. He's the starting center for Miami, I want to say, for a year or 2. Big boy that can move, right? And like you said, and just with that being said, is that he's not afraid of the big moments, right? He's played in the ACC. Felt like I've seen top tier NFL draft prospects and things like that. So I agree with you. The trenches will be an interesting matchup that will dictate
6-year senior.
6 years senior. So he's played a lot of football. DP, he's been in college for quite a few years, right? But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our every days. On tomorrow's show, guys, we're getting into the matchup. Clemson versus Texas, the prospects offensively, defensively, X factors to watch for the 2025 and maybe even 2026 NFL Draft. We'll talk about all that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.